Oh, that's the Alexa Dunn one. Okay, so Alexa Dunn, and then here's the Jenna Moreci one. Boy, I saved the longer ones to the end, didn't I? Magic tropes or amateur writing mistakes. 22 amateur writing mistakes. All right, we're gonna have to not do that one today. All right, let's go. Title tech tier.
Hey guys, it's me, Katharine, aka your new favorite ginger and freelance editor, and this is Year of the Author, a series where I talk about books and writing and offer you tips and tricks that work for me and might just work for you. If not, well, I tried. I did my part. On today's Reacting to AuthorTube writing advice videos, we're talking about the 10 worst magic tropes in books by Jenna Moreci, and boy, do I have some spicy opinions.
These 5 words changed my life. 5 words that will change your life. 5 words.
So go ahead and smash that subscribe button, ring the bell, comment, like, and share this video. Do all the things to help this channel grow. You know you want to. Now let's get on with the show. Disclaimer before we begin. I'm reacting to popular writing advice here on YouTube. This isn't an attack, so don't read too much into it. It's not that serious, and it's all in good fun. Trust me, it's not that deep. Hopefully writers can learn a thing or two. If not, well, I tried. Please note that I sped up clips to save on time and cut out most of the intros, outros, and anything sponsor related. Also, this video falls under fair use. If there is a writing advice video out there you'd like me to react to, then comment below and I will add it to the list and help make that happen. And now it's time for some shameless self-promotion. If you haven't already heard, Year of the Author has officially launched its editing and critiquing services. I offer copy editing, line editing, and developmental editing, proofreading, and critiques for full manuscripts, chapters, and outlines. For more information, please check out the About section on this channel or email me at yearoftheauthor@gmail.com. Now let's get on with the show.
Hello, everybody. We haven't talked about tropes in a while, have we? You already know I am a huge fan of fantasy, which means I have read more than my fair share of magic systems. Sometimes they're awesome, sometimes they fucking suck. We're here to discuss the latter. Magic itself is a trope, but there are so many sub-tropes revolving around magical systems or magical creatures, and sometimes they're the worst. Half the time, the trope itself isn't bad, it's just the execution that's so god-awful. Writers, why are you doing this? What did this trope do to deserve such shameful representation? Since it's TSC's book birthday month, now seemed like a good time to discuss this because for some reason you guys really like to hear me whine. I'm happy to deliver. Now I am firing off the 10 worst magic tropes in my humble but completely correct opinion. A brief disclaimer, this list is my subjective opinion. If you disagree, I don't give a shit. Additionally, just because a trope is on this list doesn't mean I hate every incarnation of it. Some of these tropes can be handled very well. There's always exceptions to the rule. And lastly, I reserve the right to change my mind because unless you're a thick-headed dumbass, thoughts and opinions are supposed to evolve over time. Let's dive in.
I find it hilarious that Jenna's bringing up magic systems like she knows how to write them herself. But let's keep listening and give this video a fair shot. I'm pausing the clip again to add this. I give to you the magic system in the Saviors series. In case
I love it when she's like, all right, on with the show. I'm pausing again.
you don't know what I'm talking about, the magic system in the Savior's Champion and the Savior's Sister isn't actually in Jenna's series, and it's almost non-existent at all, as nothing is really explained. Sure, there is magic there, but how is it used? How did it become a thing, and where did it come from? Is it shared, and if so, how and why is it shared, and to who is it shared with? Does the magic have any negative side effects on the character using it, or with Layla giving it away to someone? What is the magic system in Thesson actually like? No one knows.
No one knows.
Fuck, Jenna probably doesn't even know any of this herself. Pausing the clip again just to add, Jenna, why are you doing this? What has this trope done to deserve such shameful representation in your books? Seriously,
what
inquiring
trope? We
minds
haven't
want to
gotten to
know.
one yet.
So, using Jenna's logic here, so now I'm reacting to these 10 magical tropes in my humble and completely correct opinion. My reaction is my subjective opinion, and if you don't agree with it, I don't give a shit. Pausing this again to say, then be humble enough to admit when your opinions have changed. Don't delete videos and remake them to fit your new opinions. Keep them up and just state, my opinion on this has changed. To me, hiding those videos is just you hiding what you used to think because you either know it's wrong and you never believed it in the first place, or you grew as a writer and you're just now trying to hide it because you're embarrassed. And you know what? It's not humble at all to hide it. In fact...
Okay. What I would say about that is, I think that it is correct to remove the video that you no longer agree with because you no longer agree with it. You don't want that out there floating around on the internet, especially attached to your channel. Now, should you still say like, hey guys, I'm doing a new video on magic systems and my opinions on them because my last video I did was a few years ago and my opinions have changed over time, so here's what I think right now. And then boom, go into it, right? Have that little disclaimer, say that, you know, your opinion changed. That's totally fine. But I think that it is for brand preservation, it is actually a good idea to remove the old video, so that way no one who's coming to your channel for the first time hears your old opinions that you no longer believe in, starts commenting on it, you know, talking to you, you know, messaging on Twitter or whatever else. No one's going off the assumption that that older video is what you still think. So it is correct to remove it, but she's right. You should have like the humility and the integrity to kind of basically say that, you know, say, hey, my opinion has changed.
It just makes you look like an ass. So humble yourself, Jenna, just a little tiny bit and admit you changed your mind, and that is completely okay. There isn't anything wrong with changing your opinions, but hiding the fact that you had old opinions is what makes it look wrong. I mean, you've grown and matured as a reader and a writer.
Now, what Jenna did, if that's that's what I'm guessing, that's what I'm understanding. If Jenna had like an old video and in this new one all she said was, hey guys, my opinion can change, it sounded to me, I took it as this was her first one and she's saying, hey guys, my opinion might change later, but right now this is what I think, which was fine. But if she had an older video and she's basically ignoring the fact that she had it by using like kind of using like the wrong language type, you know, it's like she could still be like, I said my opinion could change, and it did. It changed from when it was back then. It's like, yeah, but the way you worded it, it's like that was, you made it sound like, you know, your opinion could change in the future.
Just like I have. And an overall person, you've matured and grown, just like I have. Fuck, if I still acted and thought like I did way back in 2018/2019, I'd be sitting here trying to start World War III and calling everyone and their mamas to the carpet. And that would have erupted long and long ago. But you know what? People change their opinions. They change their attitudes. And they change how they interact with people. Or at least I can only speak for myself. Because I know how to start drama if I want to start drama. And no, this reaction series is not starting drama. Since people like to, you know, insinuate that, it's not. Calm down. It's not that serious or that deep. My dislike for Jenna is about her dislike of pantsers to the point of making it sound like there's only one way to write a book, and that is outline, when that isn't the case.
Sweaty Betty, find your power.
I don't want your product. Sweaty Betty boy. Oh yeah, I can't skip.
And the fact that she does not take her writing advice for herself, like at all. So is that just a marketing ploy? Or does she know the advice she gives doesn't actually sell books? That is why I'm doing this.
I would say that her advice can sell books. Her advice that she says makes good books. Well, not all. I do disagree with her on some things, but I mentioned this in another in another section of this broadcast here that she can't go back. Her image is that she is an authoritative voice, which is part of the reason that Katharine doesn't like it, is because, you know, it's kind of like my way or the highway, right? She has an authoritative voice, and she can't really say, hey guys, she can't change that. It's her brand, basically, is what it really comes down to. It's her brand. And she can't be like, hey guys, the book I sold you a while back was shit, and so now buy my new book, which is a book on writing books. She can't do it, right? She can't do it. She maybe in a few years, like I've mentioned this before as well. Maybe in a few years, when she kind of sunsets the Savior series and she's on to another series, she can look back on it and go, yeah, I made some mistakes in that series. I made some mistakes. But if you read the series, go buy my old books. If you read the series, you'll see that I improve over time, and my writing is much better today than it was back then. And, you know, blah 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 blah. She doesn't do that with Eve the Awakening. Eve the Awakening is basically a sunset project. She doesn't. I don't think you can buy it anymore. I'm not sure, but you know, she doesn't talk about that one anymore. But she doesn't say anything about like, look how far my writing has come since Eve the Awakening. She doesn't do that. So I don't know if she ever will with the Savior series.
Action series to her.
But until the Savior series is done and she's on to another project, she's never. I don't think she's ever going to admit that they are not great. Yeah, because she can't. That would ruin her. That would ruin her her business model.
Videos. Can I apply her advice to her own writing, or to my writing, or to writing in general? That is how deep my dislike of Jenna goes. I don't give a shit about the past. I don't give a shit about anyone I don't talk to. I don't give a shit about what she does. It is what it is. But, like Jenna said, only a thick-headed dumbass would think anything else, that people can't change. Take your own advice, Jenna. People can change, right? Or does this only apply to Jenna? Because I'm saying bull fucking shit to that. But the main reason why I'm reacting to this video is to see if she's done any of these in her books. And, of course, offer my personal unwanted opinion into the mix.
We want it, Katharine.
If you agree with me, cool. If you don't, cool. Hopefully someone learns a thing or two. We all have free will to think however we want. And it is what it is. Now let's get started.
Number 1. Well, that was convenient. I don't know if this counts as a trope, but this is probably my biggest magic system pet peeve. Magic systems can be complex, which means you need to describe bits and pieces of it over time. So the time to introduce a life-saving magic trick isn't the exact moment it's needed. It doesn't read as a magical hero saving the day, it reads as a get-out-of-jail-free card. The writer didn't know what to do in that moment, so they added super convenient magic to move the story along. We all know what you're doing. You're not subtle, but you may be a tiny bit stupid. If you do have life-saving magic and intend to utilize it, introduce it before it's necessary. That way, it doesn't read as a last-minute additive to get you out of a plot hole. This is Magic System 101 here. You can't just drop in some superpowers the moment it's convenient unless you want your readers to judge you harshly.
Well, holy shit. Right off the bat, Jenna done fucked this point up so bad and...
Okay, before she goes into grilling Jenna, let me just say that this is commonly referred to as a Deus Ex Machina, which is like a from the gods or of the gods or whatever that translates into. And basically, this is from the old plays where our hero, you know, the old Greek and Roman plays or whatever, where the hero would be having an issue and they really can't solve this issue, so then the god would basically fix the issue. Like, here's a sword that can cut through anything, here's a shield that can defend anything, here's a lightning strike where I kill it for you, whatever, right? The hero is overwhelmed and then God steps in out of nowhere. But before, God could have always stepped in, but never did. Or more likely, it was more like I think that the Greek ones, they were very often like the gods can't get involved because otherwise it'll start a war with them or whatever it was, right? So that would be a Deus Ex Machina, where you have this not set up savior occur. Deus Ex Machina, I believe, can. No, not really. Basically, if you're going to have something like a Deus Ex Machina, like she said, you need to have it set up beforehand. So if you're going to have a magic ability where it's like, we heal everybody, or everyone gets resurrected, or I produce a fireball, or whatever it is, whatever the big magic spell is that saves the day, that needs to be foreshadowed somewhere, right? Like, it's well known that mages of high caliber can produce a fireball. It's just that it's so dangerous that they don't do it very often, right? Then at the end of the story, it's like we have no other option. We're losing. We're going to have to do what we can, and if that means hurt ourselves in the process, we're going to do it. So here's a gigantic fireball, right? That is what you have to kind of consider when you're writing stuff like this. If you're going to write magic, it's important that the reader understand what's on the table, what is not on the table, and what kind of could be on the table, but we hold it back because it's too dangerous, kind of thing, right? Or whatever the rules might be that hold it back. Like in Wheel of Time, Rand has magic basically whenever he wants it. The problem is that whenever he uses it, he slips closer into madness, right? So it's like, okay, I don't want to use magic right now, but here we go. And he uses it, and he gets a little bit more. So that's kind of the thing. It's like, okay, we know we can do the thing, but we don't want to do the thing because of other thing, right?
Both Eve the Awakening and the Savior series. Let me break it down for you. But before I go on to explain, let's keep listening. Or you can do what Jenna does and don't explain shit about anything. Oh. Explain everything away by saying it's the Savior's blessing. She places her hands upon your unworthy skin and you're all better. The end. It takes very little thought, very little magic building and world building, yet the reader still doesn't know what the fuck is actually going on. As for what Jenna is saying, I agree with her. Don't spring magic on your readers. Hint or...
I think that Katharine doesn't like healing. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe she just doesn't like the way that Jenna did it, but I get this feeling that she's not a fan of healing. My book does include healing. My magic system does have a healing system in it. And there's different ways to incorporate healing, but if it really is just kind of like lay your hands down and then we're done, everything's good, that can be very troublesome because basically as long as you can do that, you're in no danger.
Bring it up earlier in the book. This, of course, will take a lot of thoughtful planning and creativity, but I believe in you. You can do it. And you should be able to believe in yourself, too. That is my nice compliment for the day, maybe even for the week. I mean, if you don't believe in yourself and your capability of writing a good book, why should people buy your book? If you're just going to take the easy road out of creativity and developing a real, believable, and realistic magic system for a fantasy world, why bother wasting readers' money on shit that you don't even care enough about to begin with? Or, to put any thoughtful thinking into your story yourself. Then again, could Eve's emergence count as springing it on the reader. And I know that's reaching. I get it. But it's just an example. Sure, this is reading way too much into that example, but it's something to think about. Eve's emergence and, you know, her powerful outburst was sprung out of nowhere on the reader. But I make it to point out that I don't actually think this is a bad example at all. I actually enjoyed the prologue of Eve the Awakening, or the opening scene when she was a child. It was the fact that it turned into a dream sequence that made me roll my eyes completely to the back of my head.
Sequence. No.
Let's move on to the next point.
Which brings us to number 2, the magical resurrection. I don't mind resurrections as a whole. I've seen them done really well. But just like the first point, if a resurrection feels too convenient, I'm gonna roll my eyes far enough to see my brain. You can't have everyone mourning the loss of a character only for someone to saunter in and say, by the way, did I tell you I can resurrect people? No, must have slipped my mind. I don't care if it's a magical character who performs the resurrection. I don't care if it's a spell or a talisman. Make it inconvenient, make it a struggle, or make it a possibility the readers are already aware of. Stop shoehorning in resurrections at the last minute to save your precious darlings. All it does is tell readers, don't get emotionally invested if anyone dies. We're just gonna bring them back. Thanks for putting in no effort at all.
Okay, I get to agree with Jenna again. This is the fastest way to make me not care about your character, or sometimes even the entire damn book. To me, the character's death should matter. Always. It should.
I've been getting paid $1,000 a month, if not more,
a month?
just from this app on my phone.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know.
Should evoke some sort of emotional response in readers. But if you pull them out of the story by pulling the rug out from under them and say, psych, I'm bringing them back, bitches, it is the biggest letdown for me as a reader. Sure, I might feel bad for the character who died, but it comes off as cheap and not creative at all. Unless there is some kind of godly reason as to why the character is sent back to finally kill the villain, don't fucking do this. Or better yet, just continue to write your books however the fuck you want to write them. Just don't get mad if I don't like it as a reader or other readers don't like it. I'm sure there are other readers out there that will love seeing a beloved character brought back to life. It just won't be me, mainly because I love seeing characters killed off. It makes me feel a little less dead inside. As for Jenna's books, Eve the Awakening had this moment in a way. If I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments if I'm wrong, but Eve does die at the end of book 1, but she is just magically brought back to life, I think by medical means, or maybe by chimera means. I'm not exactly sure. It's been like, what, 5+ years since it came out? It's been a while. But I do remember she dies and she is brought back, but I just can't remember exactly how.
Yeah. When it comes to resurrections, I am in the agreement process of, like, you know, you don't want to do this too much. You want to be careful with that. But I don't think that resurrection is inherently wrong. It's just overly convenient so much. There was Critical Role season 1 saw, I want to say it was when there are these two twin characters, Vax and Vex or something like that, or Vaxelia and Vexelia, Vaxelheim, whatever. Basically, I think it was when one of them died, the other one, they failed on resurrections, and so one of them, like, they fell on the roll for resurrections, and then one of them, like, prayed to a goddess to resurrect their twin and said, like, I promise that I will be your servant forever if you resurrect them. And then they rezzed them, and it was like, once you finish, like, well, basically what it turned into, like, the end, right? It turned into the ending where it was like at the end of their travels, when they finally defeated the main villain, the the character was taken by the goddess. I think it was when his sister had died that he made that promise. I forget exactly when, but that was a good use of a resurrection. And in D&D, where resurrection is very common, very, very happens all the time, this was like, you know, a very good way of making it to where there was a serious cost to it. He traded his life. Now, yes, he got to stay around for a while longer, but it was like, the deal is, once you finish your business with this evil wizard thing, right? Once you beat the evil wizard, you become mine. And that's what happened, right? He didn't get out of it.
So on one hand, it's sort of like this trope, but on the other hand, it isn't like this trope. Either way, it would have been so much better if Eve died for real. And now it's Jason who had to take over the plan to find the other chimeras, train them all up to save the day. But who am I kidding? Jenna's books aren't that deep. But let's move on to the next clip.
Number 3, shape-shifting. Before you shit your diaper, hear me out. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with shapeshifters. If that's your jam, read and write to your heart's content. I just find shapeshifters kind of boring. Shifter fiction is extremely popular, people absolutely love it, but it kind of seems like they all revolve around the same 3 plots. Either we've got one pack of shifters battling another pack of shifters, or we've got shifters battling a different fantasy race, or we've got a woman getting married off and dicked down by a grizzled shifter dude. It's not super interesting to me. Plus, I don't get the appeal of a man who can turn into a tiger or a bear. Do you want to get fucked or do you want to get mauled? Call me vanilla, but I'd rather keep my flesh attached to my body.
Oh fuck, Jenna is about to piss off the whole paranormal romance genre community with this one. I can already tell. No one messes with their shifter porn. Like, no one. I find it funny how Jenna played this point fairly safe and tamed down her dislike to just a simmering little petty boil. I'm personally trash for shifter porn, but I honestly haven't read one in years, maybe even like 10 years or more. I can easily see the appeal, but I honestly was only there for the smut. I mean, I read this stuff nonstop when I was in high school and for a few years after high school, but then I just kind of leaned more towards horror books after that. And I also just graduated to reading erotica like a normal person. I mean, I could eat that up like candy. Also, I was really burnt out on the character tropes in paranormal romance. Look, I get it. Bad boys and good girls sell books. There's a huge market for that. And if you write that, by all means, write the fuck out of it. But I can only read about so many asshole dudes before I just wish the love interest would come out as a flaming lesbian and find herself a lady tiger or bear or wolf and live happily ever after because lesbians. Maybe even an attractive platypus could, like, make her day. See what I did there?
Unattractive
But
platypus.
My point is this. The overly possessive, aggressive, and dominant dude is hot. But I can only take so much before I need something different.
Is this really
like
a topic right now?
Come to think of it, are there any LGBTQ shifter porn out there? Is like, is there like a book where there is one alpha of the pack meets another alpha of the pack, and they are at war with each other, and then they fall in love? Is there anything like that? Because
I would ask, you know. No, I wouldn't. Never mind.
be down for reading that, right quick. If so, comment below. I want to see two dominating and overly aggressive and possessive as fuck dudes try to make the other bend to their will. That to me sounds like a fun time. And it sounds like a steamy, fun read. But let's get to the next clip.
Number 4, the Sage Magical Mentor. He's usually white, definitely male, possibly a wizard, and pretty damn old. You shall not pass! You already know that I'm not a fan of the mentor trope in general. I know I'm in the minority with that one. But this old sage wizard is my least favorite of all mentors. Ask any woman about their experience with old white men who want to mentor them, and I guarantee
old white men. So is it of an old black man, an old Asian man? Those are much better? Are those much better?
it'll be the most audacious, ridiculous bag of shit you ever heard. The first old white man to offer to mentor me as a writer and a YouTuber was back when I had 7,000 subscribers. He had 3. We'd both published 1 book. His had a spelling error in its first sentence. I know, cause he told me. He drew his cover himself. It featured Jesus on the cross next to the Grim Reaper holding a beer, I think. And when I denied his wisdom, he sent me videos of him doing push-ups to prove that despite his age, he still got it. Cause we all know push-ups are the key to writing compelling Jesus fiction.
Like, you're gonna tell me, you're gonna really sit there, Jenna. God. You're going to really sit there and you're going to basically lump all old white men in with a fucking lunatic. You're really going to do that, huh? You're really going to sit there and pretend like that situation, which I'm not even going to say you're lying. Maybe you are, but I'm going to go off on a limb and I'm going to be like, you know what? She's telling the truth. She's got a ton of followers. She could easily have this shit happen to her. Some cracked guy shows up and offers to mentor her because he obviously wants down her pants. And she's going to suggest that that is old white men. Where are your grandparents? Are they black? Are they Asian? How old is your dad? Is he not old white man yet? Where are your grandfathers? Where are your uncles, your father? Where are the men in your life? If all you have to go off of is some old white guy who sent you videos of him doing push-ups to show you that he still got it, your life is actually more fucked than you realize.
This is not my only experience with mentors, and it certainly won't be the last. And you want me to read about these men? And take their advice seriously? Now we really know this is a fantasy world, because that's the fakest shit I ever heard.
Okay, I have to ask Jenna here. What if the old mage mentor wasn't some crusty-ass white dude? What if it was a crusty-ass swamp witch? Or some other race? Or, I don't know, other sexual orientation? Or the blind, century-old child that never ages who lives in the forest? Would you enjoy the trope more if it was switched up to something like that? Because that could be a way to get around the old magical mentor. This is an honest question, of course. I'm not being a sarcastic bitch. I get what Jenna is saying here, that the most popular mentors are always old white dudes. You can't deny facts. We have thou shalt not pass.
Oh my God, it's because of Merlin. It's because of Merlin. That's the only reason that this trope exists. It's because Merlin. Well, first off, the Merlin exists because old people are bastions of wisdom and knowledge. They've lived a long time, so therefore they have a long time to gain information, right? Recently, they started doing this shit where people are 10,000 years old, but they look like they're 12. And they're the love interest to an 18-year-old girl. But that's why old is the part of the trope, is because there's a kernel of truth to that. Old people have a lot of wisdom, they have a lot of knowledge, they have a lot of life experience that they can impart and pass the torch onto the new up and comer. It's like it's like in wrestling they call it giving the rub, and basically that means like you have someone who's established come in and they work with, whether that be, you know, fighting against, or whether that be like tag teaming with, they work with this new up and comer, and by working with them, it shows that they're kind of like, hey, they're kind of on this guy's level. This vet who's been around for years that we've seen go through grueling matches, do really tough things over the years. This newcomer is actually hanging with them. They're actually like able to keep up, and they're learning things. They're doing some stuff, right? They're learning all the tricks and stuff. That's the exact same thing here. I mean, that is basically professional wrestling's version of Merlin. Is the old wrestler helps out the young wrestler, and they teach him all the tricks. Why are they white? Because we're in a white culture. That's why. You're in America. You have a white culture. If you were in China, it'd be an old Chinese man. Okay? If you were in Africa, it'd be an old black man. Right? If you were in South America, it'd be an old Indian. Okay? And I know Indian's not right. That's an old native. It'd be like, you know, the wizened shaman, right? That's what you have to really understand. Is like, it just depends on what culture you're coming from. They're old and white because you're coming from a European culture.
Yes, we have Dumbledore. I don't know any other ones, but those are the two most well-known old magical people. But I wonder if there are writers out there who try to switch things up with this a bit by making it something fresh and new. Maybe it's a female. Maybe it's a never-aging child. That would be interesting, at least to me as a reader.
Yes.
I'm not a huge...
They never age after the age of 22, and for then on, they only look for the fucking 18-year-old girls.
Fantasy reader by any means compared to other people who just read anything fantasy. So that could just very well be a real thing right now, and I'm just not aware of it. So if it is a thing, comment below some books so I could read them for myself. And if it isn't a thing, make it happen. Someone out there who's writing fantasy, be the leader of a new old mentor magic person. But I will circle back and say that Eve the Awakening had the mentor role in a way, and that is Eve. When Jason found out he was a chimera, Eve is sent to, quote-unquote, tutor him in all things chimera, ways, life, magic, whatever. So, in a way, she is kind of his mentor / teaching him the way. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but she is his mentor in a way. Even if it's not some crusty-ass old dude with a long beard and a walking stick, she is still mentoring Jason and teaching him about his abilities. So let's move to the next clip.
Number 5. You're the long-lost magical person we've been looking for all these years. Bonus points if all their powers showed up on their birthday, and if people are coming to kill them. Tell me you're a YA hero without telling me you're a YA hero. You already know I love magical characters, and I have no problem with their magic evolving over time. It's just that we get the same scenario over and over. It's your birthday. Here's the magic you didn't know you had. Oh look, a mentor is suddenly here to train you. By the way, this evil person wants you dead. Don't you just wish you were a regular teenager like everyone else? Writers, can we do literally anything else? What if their magic evolves alongside puberty? They're popping out pubes and potions at the same time. What if they don't have a mentor and they have to figure shit out on their own? I know that would reduce your ability to provide boring streams of exposition, but no one likes that shit anyway. There's a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but consider this trope broke. Do something different, for the love of God. Now,
oh Lord, here we go again. I have to bring Eve back up. Eve's quote-unquote magic didn't happen over a set time frame. Eve was literally watching her parents drive home, and then they get hit by a truck and die. Her emergence came out of left field, and she threw the whole truck into the air with her mind powers, and it slammed down, killing the drunk driver. Sure, it's not her actual birthday, but her powers were sprung on her the same sort of way. Also, it's said that not only is she the youngest chimera to have emerged, but Eve is also the strongest chimera in the entire damn world, which automatically makes her a raging Mary Sue in my book, because she's the youngest and the strongest and the fastest, and everything just comes so easily to her. Again, Mary Sue. As for Jenna mentioning the character not having a mentor, basically holding their hand through the process, I have to say that Jenna did something right with Eve. Eve had no one to teach her anything about anything when it came to being a chimera, and she had to do it all on her own, which is something I actually liked about Eve. But it doesn't change the fact that her watching her parents die made her powers kick in. It basically triggered her emergence. The only thing missing here is that it wasn't her birthday. But like I said, it's a bit of a stretch, but it was still sprung on her. Let's move to the next clip.
Number 6. Verbal spells. This is another trope that isn't inherently bad. I think verbal spells can be very believable and add a lot of value to your story, so long as you don't suck at writing them. There are 2 spell formats in particular that are really easy to butcher. The first one is the ridiculous word spell. Your character shouts something like Kalamazoo, and bam, magic. It's fucking stupid. You guys are choosing the dumbest words and I can't take them seriously. The second format is the poetry spell. Your character either recites or sings some rhymes, and your characters are lulled into a state of mystery and tranquility. Unless your poem sucks. Not everyone can write poetry or song lyrics, and if that's not your jam, choose something else. It's just hard for me to focus on the story when I'm over here laughing at your clunky rhymes. Bibbidi bobbidi boo. Your verbal spells are poo-poo. It's fine to admit when something isn't working. Go with another option, please.
I have to say the shade thrown at Harry Potter on this point is fucking hilarious. Then again, I'm not a huge fan of magic in books, so it's a no for me all around for this point. The only verbal spells I loved were in the movie The Craft. The first one, not that bastard of a remake. Nancy was always my favorite. I can't tie this point into any of Jenna's books, mainly because that doesn't happen. Then again, everything just goes back to the almighty touch. How does it work? It's never explained. She touches someone and her light heals them. End of story, and not that deep. As for me, I think it all depends on the book and what it calls for. For example, in Harry Potter, they shout 1 or 2 words, and bam, spell is cast. It keeps with the fast pace of an action scene. I mean, could you imagine if they are under attack and then the character has to say a 10-line poem to cast a spell? It wouldn't work in that setting. Whereas a setting/plot involving more elemental witches, like the movie The Craft, it has time for more poetic spells that really get into the heart of the magic. Look, I was really into The Craft when it came out. It was one of my favorite movies. But to summarize everything here, this trope all comes down to what the plot calls for. Or at least that is the unwanted opinion from someone who doesn't read a lot of magic-themed books. But I like what I like.
I think when it comes to magic spells and like having to say them or whatnot, I think that when it comes to like, because I mean, even with Harry Potter, it was like they stopped saying the spells. Eventually, it was just like, no, once you get old enough, you can just kind of like think it, I guess, and do the right wand flick, and then you got it. But with like, because of that, I just don't think that that's having words makes much sense. I also was kind of put off of it by Dragon Ball Z. The fact that they were always like, you know, they always had to shout their attacks, right? And they had like ridiculous, they just shouted the name of the attack. That was just kind of like, you know, stupid. But I do think that like ritual magic, if they're going to be doing a ritual, I think that having some sort of verbiage to that does make sense.
Like, you can like what you like, and it is what it is. Moving on to the next clip.
Number 7. I saw it foretold in a dream. I'm one of the few people who don't mind dreams in fiction. I suffer from PTSD. I have a lot of PTSD nightmares, so dreams in fiction to me are relatable and add value to a story. Dream prophecies, on the other hand, are not my favorite. Quite often, the book opens with the character having a dream they don't understand. Bam! That's your inciting incident. Turns out it was a prophecy. Better buckle up, bitches, cause shit's about to get crazy. First up, this setup is overdone. I've lost track of the stories that have utilized this cliche as an inciting incident, and I'm bored with it. Second, 9 times out of 10, we never see any other dreams in the future. That's it? One and done? Honestly, that's what annoys me the most about this trope. You can't implement a super cool magic act and then never use it again. That's such a dick tease. This is once again an example of convenient writing, and I promise there are way more exciting ways to deliver an inciting incident.
I'm pausing the clip to agree with Jenna. I don't mind dream sequences at all. I know that's going to piss off a lot of people out there, but I like them, and it is what it is. The problem comes when there are too many of them in the book, and it starts to oversaturate the story, like in Eve the Awakening. I think the initial dream of Eve waking up and having to relive the death of her parents was great. As someone who has almost died in a car crash in the late 2000s, I can say that reliving shit in dreams is real, and it fucking sucks. Every time I went to sleep, there it was, waiting for me when I dreamed. And it was playing everything out all over again. So traumatic events do affect dreams.
Yeah.
So if your character has suffered a traumatic event, it's normal to at least have one thrown into the mix if it pertains to the story and brings something meaningful to the plot. If it doesn't, then do not add it in. Period. Point blank. As for the prophecy dream sequence, sign me up. I'm all for it. That could possibly be a quick way to grab my interest as a reader or a moviegoer. I have to admit, I haven't read many stories with this trope, but I've seen a few movies, so maybe that's why I still like it. I will agree with Jenna on this one, though, with how it's done. Yeah, don't do that. If there is a prophecy involved, there needs to be a handful of dreams where the reader gets breadcrumbs of information. Extra points if it isn't exactly correct and ends up throwing the character off the correct path just a little bit along the way. Just think, there are so many things you can do with this sort of setup to make it fresh and not so stereotypical and overused. But do not just have one dream and then never mention it again.
Yeah, that's one thing I would say is, like, I think that dream sequences can be fine, but it does need to be, especially if it's going to be like a prophecy thing, it does need to be something that happens with the character more than once in the book. And you can even do like references where like they are already awake and it's just kind of like, I had another fucking dream last night, and rather than having to do the dream sequence again, just note or just like have them say what happened in it or whatnot, kind of thing. So you don't always have to take the reader there to have it. And I think that this works better in multiple POVs, because that way one character is the one that's actually having these dreams, but you don't have to continuously go back to that character. Like, you know, if it's either a single POV or if it's like, you know, flip-flopping back between 1 and 2 people, you're spending a lot of time with that person that has these dreams. But if it's a multiple POV type of book, then you might only have like 2 to 4 chapters with that person, and having them have these dreams is not that bad. Also, too, if this is part of your magic system where dreams matter in this regard, like having prophecies or just having what is it called, like forbearance? Is that what it's called, forbearance? I'm not sure if that's what that's called. Maybe foresight, something like that. Basically, like where they can predict the future sometimes because of these things. It's not just strictly prophecy, but it's like, hey, you know what? This might happen. Watch out. That kind of thing. I think that's fine.
Don't do it. If it's going to be a thing, give it your all and make it count.
Yeah, make it a thing.
Now let's move on to the next clip.
Number 8, the overcomplicated magic system. I've complained about this before, and I'll complain about it again. If your magic system requires a glossary, a dictionary, and pages upon pages of exposition to explain away every single facet and feature, I don't want it. Throw the whole book away. I read to relax and have fun, not to feel like I'm preparing for the SATs all over again. An overcomplicated magic system is confusing to read. It makes the reading experience feel like work. But on top of that, if you can't explain something in a simplified manner, that's a prime example that you don't understand the material yourself. So now I'm sitting here thinking, do you even get your own magic system? How do you expect me to get it if you can't explain it right? And really, you don't need 1,000,001 rules to make a magic system interesting because it's magic. I know you want to be original, but boring your readers to tears ain't the way to do it.
And right off the bat,
Before Katharine gives her 2 cents on this, I would say, you know, magic systems are fun to explore. So like if you can explain a magic system inside of a couple sentences, then we're done. We like, hooray, great. A lot of people love what are considered hard magic systems that have a lot of rules, that have a lot of depth, that have a lot of limits to them. Like kind of like, okay, this is what you can do with it on paper, but what can you really do with it, right? This is what we've seen other people do with it. What can you do with it? That kind of thing, right? So when you're dealing with magic, I do think that there is a lot of room for being vague and like not explaining certain aspects of it, while at other times you do want to get kind of into the meat and potatoes. But as far as like needing a glossary, I don't know if I've ever read a magic system that needs a glossary exactly. Things that can get weird though, I do understand, like the Brandon Sanderson has one of his magic systems is like they eat a metal or something like that, and then if it's in their system while they have it, they have a certain type of power while that metal is inside their system. So like different metals do different things, but if they don't have it in their system, then they can't do that magic. That's pretty basic, right? I mean, that's not basic, but that's like not super complex, right? It's just, you just need to, all you need to do is keep up with is, okay, what metal does what? That's all you need to know. If one metal allows them to levitate or something like that, then, oh, he has that one, then he can levitate. Okay, cool. Oh, he doesn't have it? It means he can't levitate. Oh, wow. Not hard, right? I think one of the things whenever she talks about these kind of things, because a lot of times I feel like I haven't read these books that she's referring to sometimes. I kind of wonder if she's talking about just bad books. Because most of the time when I read fantasy books, the magic system, even if it gets complex, it still makes perfect sense. It just depends on how you feed the information to the reader, when you give them the information, how much of it are you giving them. Again, it comes back down to what do they need to know right now. And as long as you're giving them that rather than like the entire thing, they're going to be fine. It's all going to be fine.
I can pull this into TSC's magic system, but the extreme opposite. The reader isn't given enough information about anything in the Savior series. Everything is glossed over and not deep whatsoever, to the point where readers ask, is there even a magic system set in place here, or does world building even exist in this book? The answer to both of those, on all fronts, is no, there isn't. All the reader gets is that Layla is able to touch people and take away their pain and heal them with no lasting side effects for herself, which is a huge, huge missed opportunity. I personally think her having to bless the land every day and heal people should take away something from her. Maybe.
Yeah, in a manuscript I'm working on where it's like superheroes, basically, one of the characters has the ability to heal people, but when he does it, he takes damage to himself. He can then heal himself for free as long as he has the time to do it. But basically, like in one of the opening scenes, it's like someone gets their arm broken, and then instead of their arm breaking, his finger like bursts open like I wrote like a hot dog in the microwave. So it just splits right down the middle, just poof. And then, that hurts him. He's like, ouch, that freaking hurts. After a minute, when he's able to just heal himself. And there's just a tiny little white scar on that one. Sometimes there's no scarring. Sometimes there is scarring. And so he's able to heal himself as long as he just has the ability, like just a little bit of time to himself. He can just focus on it, heal it. Good. That's his powers. He can heal anyone of any damage, but he has to take some type of damage to himself. It's not like a 1-for-1 kind of thing. So if they get shot in the forehead, he doesn't get his forehead blown up or anything, but he does take a significant amount of damage if someone got shot in the head, kind of thing. It's like level appropriate from the wound to wound, from like person to person. But when he takes it, it's not 1-for-1. But it is like, that one wasn't that bad. Really, almost nothing to me. That one was terrible. I take a really bad wound. That's going to take me a little while to heal, kind of thing. So I think as far as healing goes, it's extremely overpowered, but there is a limit to it that is defined.
Maybe she's always exhausted or sickly, or maybe this is why she's smaller and slower than everyone, is because her health is being leached a little bit each day.
That's a good one.
Maybe in order to heal someone, she takes on the sickness or pain herself. That would involve great sacrifice and selflessness on her part. Sadly, the Savior series isn't that deep. There is no way in hell Layla would ever think about harming herself for anyone she loves if it caused herself to suffer. But for the reader, it would show, quote-unquote, great love on her part. See what I did there? To sacrifice her own health and body for Toby when she heals his wounds. But again, that would require depth to the story. As for the overly complicated magic system, I'm with Jenna on this one. I don't need a textbook of all the things in your magic system. It's honestly what really bores me about fantasy books. I always feel overwhelmed with everything being info dumped on the page within the beginning of the story, but I think the reader needs to at least understand something, or it'll lack all the important things like Jenna's series. Readers will be left with a lot of questions and get no answers for any of them. So I'm chalking this up to yet another trope that needs to be evenly balanced throughout a fantasy setting or a magic.
The thing is, in my book, in my fantasy series, there's actually a couple, let's see, the monks, the priests, the mages, and the assassins. So there's like also the warriors. There's like 5 different types of magic systems going on. And you have to get into them a little bit, right? I mean, and then actually technically there's also druids and shamans, so there's 7, but they don't really get talked about too much. It's just one of those things where it's kind of like there's magic going on, and again, as you need to know, we're going to tell you. But until you need to know, we're not going to tell you. That's all it comes down to. I don't understand. Again, it could just, the authors make mistakes. They info dump. It happens. That's why there's the advice of don't info dump. It's because other people have done it.
System setting. Or the reader gets the perfect amount of necessary information that doesn't confuse or bog down the reading experience.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the next clip.
Number 9, the magical talisman. This is yet another trope that I don't inherently hate, but again, it's all in the execution. The magical talisman is always one of 4 things: a staff, a sword, a book, or a piece of jewelry. And what's the story about? That's right, your character either has to find the talisman, protect Protect the talisman or destroy the talisman. We've read this story before. We've seen the movie. You can move on now, or you can at least make your talisman unique. Hell, I would read a book about a magical tampon at this point, just to experience something different. And the quest to find, save, or destroy this talisman always has the characters tossing the amulet back and forth like a game of hot potato. Magical objects are fine, but can we not write an entire book about them? I feel like that's a reasonable request.
Well, here's one that isn't in... Nope, wait. I take that back. There is somewhat of a talisman in Eve the Awakening, but I admit this one is a bit of a stretch. Now hear me out. In Eve the Awakening, I remember there being something Eve desperately needed to do. In Eve the Awakening, I remember there being something Eve desperately needed to get in order to do something. If I remember correctly, it was called a torque. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly,
okay.
or
Like
it's something
torque?
like that. I'm probably butchering the name, so cut me some slack here. But she needs it to do something, or power up something, or power down something. But either way, she needed this thing. Wow, my memory is really dropping the ball on this one, guys. But in a way, the talisman is there in some way, shape, or form. But I will admit it's a bit of a stretch because it isn't something like the monkey's paw where you get wishes. It's just she needs it to do something. I personally haven't read many books with this trope in it, so I don't really have much of an opinion on this one, guys. I think it was...
I got you. MacGuffins are a thing. They're always going to be a thing. Don't ever think they're not going to be a thing. The thing that I would say about MacGuffins that I would impose is that when it comes to fantasy, usually the MacGuffins are magical. They do something right. It's better to have them go after this thing because they believe it can do something that it doesn't do. But the thing that it doesn't do is still on the same power level, but it's just different, right? So, they believe it'll grant them one wish. It doesn't do that, but it does allow them to resurrect the dead, right? Something like that, or vice versa. It doesn't resurrect the dead, but it will grant them one wish, whatever kind of thing. That is one thing that you can do. The other thing that I would say you could do is you have a MacGuffin that does something. Maybe you don't even make it very clear. You just know it's very powerful. Maybe it's like a power conduit the first time around. But you don't really know what it's exactly for yet. It's just, hey, this thing has a lot of magic in it, so we can siphon it and it becomes a power conduit. But technically there's some other use for it that we're just not sure of yet. And a couple books down the road, they figure it out, and you've had this MacGuffin that people are already aware of and already familiar with, and then they can use it in that way. This trope it's just like any other trope. It's not overdone. It's just a trope that exists. Everyone's going to keep doing it. Get over it.
Was carried out well in Harry Potter with the Horcruxes. I think I'm saying that right, or whatever they're called. I only wish that in order to kill Voldy for good, Harry should have died with him, since he was a Horcrux. Horcrux. He was whatever, one of the 7 Horcruxes.
Sorry. Yeah, he was one of the Horcruxes, and he did die.
So I think he should have just died in order to kill Voldemort.
He did.
But that's just me. It would have been a great ending to the entire series since Harry was a Horcrux.
No. The way the series ended in the books, go check out my YouTube channel. Go check out the video. I fucking did a whole rant on this. The way the book ended was so superior to the way the movies ended. They shouldn't have changed a fucking thing.
Whatever it's called.
And so, no, Harry should not have died a second time to get rid of Voldy. What they did was basically one of the best endings I've ever read.
But let's move on to the last clip.
And number 10, the overpowered magical protagonist. Half the points on this list boil down to this particular issue. If your main character is overpowered with magic, I'm not interested. Magic that pops up at convenient times is overpowered. Magic that essentially renders your characters immortal is overpowered. It's perfectly fine for magic to be an asset to your characters, or to get them out of some shitty situations. But they need to be fallible, they need to have weaknesses and limitations, otherwise the story is boring. If your character can't hurt, can't die, or can't be defeated, what are the stakes? The stakes do not exist. I know.
Wrong. 100% wrong. We'll get into it here in a second.
Power fantasies are fun, but save that for your fanfic. If you're trying to publish a fantasy novel, please don't overpower your magical protagonist unless you want to completely destroy the reading experience.
I think this point should just be labeled, quote-unquote, Layla, because she's the definition of this trope. There, I said it. It's what a lot of readers think, so I know it's not just a me thing, or that I'm being overly critical. It's funny how Jenna brings up the character needing to have a weakness, and they shouldn't be overpowered. But Layla is literally out there healing all the competitors with ease, and no negative side effects to her. Now, I think I already covered most of this topic in a different point, so I'm not going to just keep repeating myself here. But my point is this: everything comes so easily for Layla. Hell, even Toby's hero journey is paved in Layla's magic. So he'll feel a moment of pain, but when Layla comes around, she'll heal him up good and fine, and he won't have to worry about anything. Layla also doesn't have any limitations to her power, since she's literally a godlike being. And Jenna said it herself, your story is just boring. If your character can't get hurt, or can't die, or can't be defeated, what are the stakes? This is what I asked while reading The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister. What are the stakes? There are men being burned alive. One is beat to death, the other takes a giant thorn to the face. Milo is crushed when he's pushed into a trap. But what does Toby get? Off the top of my head, these were the wounds that I just remember. The poisonous scene, he gets bit by spiders, he gets a knife in his knee/thigh during the heartbeat challenge, he gets beaten up, but then in comes Layla and she heals him right up with magic. There are no stakes when magic is a cure-all for everything for Toby. Then throw in the fact that he wins/passes out without problems, or purposely loses everything.
Passes out without problems? What the fuck kind of challenge is that?
To spend time with Layla. In The Savior's Sister, Layla runs/shadow walks her way out of everything, or she's capable of killing a skilled military fighter, one with years or decades of experience, and kills him without breaking a sweat because she can shadow walk her way to a victory. Again, what are the stakes for her character if she can just use her powers to get out of every life-threatening situation? Or use her magic to gain the upper hand in everything? But enough about that, let's finish out this clip.
Okay, so
Jenna, I just gotta say this. Layla and Toby, hell, even Eve, are your power fantasies. Just admit it. It's okay. Your readers can see it clearly if they are looking at your work critically. But hats off to you. You've managed to ruin the reading experience, like you said in the clip. I'm not sure if Jenna is this unaware of her own writing, or if she just refuses to see it for what it is and admit it for herself. Or at the very least, she isn't humble enough to say it. But let's reiterate this piece of advice. Just because you admit you did wrong in your own writing does not mean you're admitting you're a failure or that your work sucks, and no one should listen to your advice. Admitting your mistakes mean you're humble enough to admit you've done something wrong and you are not perfect at the craft of writing, and are aware of your own writing flaws. I want to make it absolutely clear. I am not a perfect writer. Jenna is not a perfect writer, and no one listening to this right now will ever be a perfect writer, because perfect writers don't exist. Reading is subjective. You can think you wrote the best book ever, everyone can love the fuck out of it, but one reader out there, at least one reader out there, in their subjective opinion, will think your work is shit. That's just the harsh reality. And that is okay, because for every 5 people that don't like your work, there'll be 5 more that do. And our work will always suck to at least one person out there in existence. And to me, that is perfectly okay. Just be humble enough to be like, yeah, maybe I didn't pull that off. Maybe it would have been better if I did this instead. Just be humble enough to admit you did something wrong. And then maybe people won't be as critical of you and your books. That's all I gotta say on that. So comment below.
Okay, so let's talk about how, like, what are the stakes if a person is immortal, basically, right? They can't die. So I don't have immortal heroes in my book, right? They can all die. There is healing that goes on, so I'll actually touch on healing real fast. Healing works very fine in the sense that you just don't make it like, super duper easy, right? In a fight where everyone's taking life-threatening damage, you've got a healer or 2, and they can't keep up with it all, so the minuscule damage continues to build up. That's all you gotta really do, right? That's how mine kind of works. They can't keep healing everyone. They can't keep healing themselves as well. Using that kind of power is very draining on them, all that kind of shit. So you have to kind of just equate for the power balance, right? That's all it really comes down to. It's like, okay, do I have healers? Well, then the damage needs to be up here then. That's all that really comes down to. When it comes to immortals, let's talk about that. So if you have a character that's immortal, I had a critique partner who had a fantasy where the character was immortal, and I want to say that he would take damage and then like it would almost instantly heal, or like it would heal very fast, something like that. So I guess technically, also he was pure immortal in the sense that even if he blew up, he would like Deadpool come back, right? It was like that kind of thing. He would grow back off of whatever was left over, kind of thing. So there was this fight scene at the end where he had been tracking these people who had basically, there was like these raiders took a town, or not took a town, but they came in, ransacked a town, took hostages, went off, and he was tracking them down. And when he gets there, he's able to defeat them all, right? And I was like, look, there's no tension to this because you're focusing on him beating them. Given that he's like 1,000 years old, he has all the advantages. He can't die. There's no tension here. So instead, what you want to do is you're going to want to focus on the hostages. He can beat everybody. The goal isn't to win. Because he's going to win. That's already said and done. The goal is how many people does he save? If he can't die, they can though. So now it needs to shift to how does he keep them alive, right? How many of them does he actually save, and what steps does he take? Where's the drama in that? Hello, Blue. So that's what you got to focus on. You got to focus on if they're immortal, what's around them that's not immortal? The love interest, their best friend, the whatever, right? The other things around them could come crashing down because they can all die, but they can't. So you're not taking away their life, you're taking away their reasons to live, in essence, right? You're taking away the things that make them happy to be here day in and day out. You're making those things go away, and you're making them wish that they were dead. You're making a fantasy map, that's cool. So that's what I have to say about this right here, as far as, you know, their advice on having a character that's immortal and there's no stakes there. There are stakes there if you make it that way. Because, again, this kind of goes back to my point earlier about how so many books are focusing the conflict on physical conflict, when really the conflict that we as humans care about is the interpersonal relationships. We kind of know that the character's going to go into a fight, and even if he can die, even if he can get totally trashed and die, we know he's going to win. That's how these books work, right? That's how fantasy works. Kind of like we know at the end of a romance, the couple's going to get together. That's a romance, right? It's a guarantee. It's a lock, right? So at the end of a fantasy, our main character is going to win somehow, some way. We're just here to see how it happens. But if they happen to be immortal, then we need different stakes, because now, rather than the stakes being, are they going to live or die, it's all about that interpersonal relationships that they're going to lose if they don't succeed at beating the villain in time or thwarting their plan or whatever. So there are stakes there if you make them. All right, that is 7 hours, guys. I appreciate you all coming in here, and I will see you next time. Happy writing.